All right, so let's draw an up head. When I'm drawing an up head, it's sort of the same idea I talked about um when I started drawing heads in the beginning. It's all about using basic shapes to define where things sit on the head,
Come
right?
on, mon ami.
So starting with a basic skull shape, if I was drawing a basic skull, I have my circle for like the part of the skull where the brain goes, and then from there I kind of bring my chin down to find the
Come
jawline
on, mon ami.
and bring that up into that circle. And that right there, that's like the most basic of basic kind of skull shapes, because then you can sort of break that into planes where you have your side plane here, and then you can kind of split the middle of the face there, and then you'll have like a top plane, so then you get like the top of the head. The top, look at the top of his head. So then you have like the top of the head, and then if you were to split that, then you can get like the brow line, where the nose comes. And this is just like way advanced in terms of like the way I break down the form. But it's like this is sort of like what helps me remember it a lot easier. And you'll only get to this point by studying faces, by finding references of faces and drawing them over and over and breaking them down in this fashion. So that's what we're gonna do for this woman here, where I'm gonna be using all of this exact stuff to to break down how to draw this up head. So in this case, I have sort of my circle for my skull. And it's going to be a little bit tilted because her head is tilted up, right? You see how here it was more like a semi-rounded. It's more like a semi-rounded rectangle. So here it's going to be slightly tilted because her head's tilted up. Then you have the jawline. So these shapes that I'm creating are very, very subtle in terms of their direction. So from this point, I defined my basic skull shape, right? So if I were to draw the neck, the neck would be coming out of the skull. So the thing to sort of, I guess, think about is once you have your skull shape, first of all, like figuring out this shape here is really important, because this shape is going to define the three-dimensionality of the head you're drawing, right? And the way it connects is like, I don't know. It's almost like a square on top of a circle. You got your circle, and then like you get like a almost like a semi-rectangle. So I split my circle in half. I can probably even bring this up a little bit more. Get a bit of that under chin there. So just like I did here, I start to define the side plane, the top plane, and where the center of my face is. Because that center, figuring out where that center is going to help me place my eyes and nose. See that? So from my circle, I cut that circle in half. And we define the jawline. So from that line, we define the center of the face there. And the thing is, as the skull rotates, obviously so will the center of the face, right? So if I'm drawing a more forward facing face, I still have my circle. Then I have my jawline. Get a bit of the bottom of the jaw. Split that circle in half. And then, all right, so from here, I have my side plane. What's gonna happen is my nose, from that center of that circle that got cut off, my nose is going to start just above that cutoff line. And because our person is looking up, once again, using the good old trusty chapstick, because we're looking up under the person's nose, we're going to see that bottom of it where the top is going to be cut off. So you're going to get something like that. And then from there, you define eyes, sockets, for the sake of the person. Let's throw that hair. From the nose, we're gonna get a little more cheek that kind of comes out on the other side there, but not as much as I gave it. But I'm gonna get a little more cheek that kind of comes out on that side. Nose coming up. Lip comes out. Other lip. Gonna get that in the plane. And the eyes that are sunken into the skull. And you have a more subtle sort of up head. And the thing to kind of recognize is figuring out where to place the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and stuff. Because from this point, I kind of want to, I want to keep this. So I'm gonna redraw it and show you guys how it all comes together. So what does the little triangle under the chin represent? That triangle here represents this. You see that? There's like, when you have your head shape, when your head is down, you're not gonna see that. But under your chin, you have like that little bit of space under there, right? And then you have like your neck. So that little triangle down there represents the underside of the chin in the form of a plane. I'm trying to like break my face up into planes to show you guys sort of like the subtle intricacies of how the shapes in the face kind of break down. So then if I was to break it down in a slightly different way, say I define the front of my face here. Which is like still exactly the same, because then I just define the side of my face here. So if you were to think about it like a cube, if our faces were cubes, you have a front side where the nose comes out, and you have eyes, and then the side where the ear is gonna be, and the jaw comes down. So that's kind of how I usually think about when I'm breaking down my face into planes, where you got the front plane, and you got the side plane. Usually an ear is gonna go like there. What up, Demolition Crew? Love you guys. What's up, Matthew? How you doing, homie? So, because this person's looking up, there's gonna be a little bit of that under chin. But then remember what I said about the nose. That bridge of that nose, is gonna come slightly above that halfway mark in that circle. Nose is gonna come out. And the nose has its own side plane, face side plane. And you're gonna have the furrow of the brow that comes up from the nose. Got the eye shape, almost like a hexagon type shape. Lips come up. Other cheek is gonna come out a little bit. a little bit more. And then I'll be making that adjustment on this side too. But just for basic shape's sake, we got it on one side. So then you got your forehead. Let's get some hair in there. All right, and we got the eyes that are sunken into the face. Eyes are gonna be sitting inside of the skull by having them kind of hit that cheek line, like you have kind of like a hexagon type shape, and then the eye is gonna sit inside of that. Then when you add eyelids, you get something like that, so that when you draw this out, you usually don't really draw these lines here. Those are more implied, but they're more plain describers. Talking about that line there, that line, and that line. So you get the eye. You draw the brow. You have yourself an eye. So the brow just comes at the top of this socket shape. Like so. And then you get your pupils in there. And if I were to draw the brows on these models, same here, where the socket kind of comes from the top of the bridge nose, and just kind of hexagons around the front plane. All right, so we got the same sort of model now on both, right? We literally just did it twice. So now let's take the second one to a more finished look. So using all my knowledge of everything I just built, now I can take that idea and say, okay, I know where the eyes is, I know where the nose is, I know where the mouth is, the hair, everything is set. So let's take this to a finish now. So starting with the bridge of the nose. That's like a really defining shape in her face. And then she has like a kind of button at the end of her nose. And then get that definition under the nostril. And kind of slight definition on the side of the nose there. I don't want to get like too detailed with it, because the more lines you draw, the older a person tends to look. So when it comes to faces, I tend to try to draw less, talk less, smile more. Don't let them know what I'm against or what I'm for. But I like to draw less and let the coloring or the shading do most of the talking. Then we get the lips in there. And there's like a good bit of like subtle shift in the shape of her lips, where like I'm looking at her lips, and if I were to break it down from the bottom of the nose like if that's the nose there, her lips kind of have this like, it comes out. And then there's a rounded sort of area, but then there's a line there that I wouldn't necessarily draw ever, because like drawing that line would make the person look super old. But like there's that subtle like sort of line on this part of the lip that kind of curves like kind of curves inward and gives her lips a very specific look. So then I have my cheekbone. The chin. Neck coming down. I pulled the neck out a little bit more. Felt like it was too far that way, so I kind of pulled it more to the left. Got my neck coming down. Oftentimes when it comes to women, even though I defined it here, I often don't really define the under area as harsh, because it tends to whenever you define it really harshly, it tends to make it look more masculine. So I usually kind of let that area be subtle, where that under chin area is more implied. But line wise, I usually only focus on that jawline. So now in the eyes, Our eyes are closed. But we recognize where the eye was sitting inside of the skull, inside of that socket there. So I kind of just chose almost like not the center, but a lower part of the eye to define that like sort of closed eye look where you just see eyelashes. And then you have the eyelid that comes up. And then you have hair comes down. Other eye on the other side. Eyelid. Brows. Brows hitting the top of those hexagons. Forehead. You can probably bring in that neck a little bit more. Hair on the sort of back hair. And hair in the front. And boom. You have Uphead. Bam. So there's an Uphead for you. All right, now let's do another one. I want to see if I can find like a more drastic Uphead. All right, so this is definitely an interesting angle to work with because of the fact that when it comes to head rotation, a lot of things tend to move around a lot. Like it's not as linear as say drawing an arm or a leg in like in perspective or like in a way that you're doing like foreshortening or something like that. Like when it comes to the head, we have the head not only has like a lot of intricate shapes going on, um, but it also we have like different features like noses that come out, lips that sort of poke out of the silhouette, eyes that sink in. So the thing about head rotation to remember is it's more about the subtleties in the shapes that change as the head shape changes. So in this case, for instance, where my skull shape would normally be that and that. That's that shape that I've been doing for everything. In this case, because if you think about our heads, same way I did this, if you think about our heads like boxes, where we would normally start with something like this. For an up head, we're working more with something like this. And all this is just this, but rotated up. So here, you're definitely going to be getting a lot more chin. But the thing to remember here is that the eyes, their eyes are really going to sink back, while that nose, you got the bridge of the nose there, that nose is really going to be sort of making itself more prevalent. And you almost won't even be able to see the other eye most of the time, depending on the angle. But then the mouth also kind of really pokes out. So thinking about the planes of the face and how we've been breaking it down, for this up head, this kind of comes with doing exactly what I'm doing, studying, breaking down the form, understanding and comprehending what it is that you're looking at the subtle shifts in shapes. So in this case, we got our skull shape, and then we get start to form our face shape. Figuring out, we have our chin, bottom of the chin is going to be a lot more defined now. You see that shape created under there? So it's no longer like a tiny triangle like it was here. Now it's really going to be defined. And we figure out our planes. You remember how normally we would just kind of go through that center of that circle? So in this case, the perspective of the front plane is going to be different than the perspective of the side plane. So the circle no longer just gets split in half. Instead, now planes are actually getting defined. So you get your center line for the face. Center line for the face there. Meanwhile, the plane on the side of the head kind of gets defined there. Jawline. Ear's gonna go there. So much like the more subtle head shape, the bridge of the nose.
Come on, mon ami.
Yo, thank you for the follow. Bridge of the nose is still gonna come slightly above that defining eye level line. And the nose. Much like the chin, the nose is going to catch a lot more attention. Like one thing I will say is that, like, when talking about these angles, it's a little bit harder to describe the subtlety in the direction of your lines, because that definitely matters. Like thinking about how that cheek, how the bottom or the top of that cheek meets up with the side of the nose. And how
Come on, mon ami.
the front plane of the face. Thank you for the follow. The front plane on the face, how it kind of snakes. Like a lot of that comes with practice and repetition, and sort of studying those subtleties. So you get the other side of the face that kind of does the same thing. Like you get this almost snake path, zigzag path that defines the cheek, and you get the same thing on the other side. But the lips are gonna kind of cross over there. For a little bit more forehead. Then hair. Hair hits that center line there. Neck comes down.
Come on, mon ami.
Mr. Turquoise, thank you for the follow. And then you get hair. So just like before, those eyes are gonna be sunken sunken in those cheeks. You see that? So it's like a lot of it is studying and comprehending the subtle directions in which you're drawing your lines to create certain shapes, because all of it is subtle direction. Going back to the A's and B's and C's, B, C, D, E, it's like we recognize these letters the way they are because of the direction in which we're drawing the lines, right? If I were to draw an A like that, that's no longer an A, it's now an H, because my lines aren't diagonal like they should be. They're going straight up and down. And that's how when you're thinking about like really not even just faces, but everything. When you think about drawing all of this stuff, everything that we've talked about so far, the direction in which your lines are moving to create objects matters. It's very, very important, because a lot of times it's so subtle that it can one line in an odd direction can throw off the entire drawing. This is pure platinum knowledge from a legend in the game. Wow, I'm definitely not that. Yeah, I'm definitely not that. Not even close. I appreciate you though, but definitely not that. So then if I were to take this to kind of a more polished state, you have doing the same thing I did here, where I kind of picked out, you see how the eye is sunken in there? So when you close your eyes, it's like for most people it's kind of like an 80-20. It's not a full 50-50 close, where the bottom of your eye, even though your eyelid, your top eyelid is what comes down to close, when you close your eyes, there's a little bit of that bottom that comes up to meet the top eyelid. So it's not going to be exactly perfectly at the very bottom of the cheek, but almost like an 80-20. It's going to be at the lower part of that eye. So you see there, I kind of cut it in half, but more of the lashes are sort of like on the lower side of the eye. Then we have the eyelid. The brow following the top of that hexagon. And then the nose. Don't really need to define a lot there, so I'm probably just gonna take that line on the side there. Get the nostrils in there. Little button on the top of her nose there. eyebrow, eye kind of going, sinking into the skull. You get your cheek coming out, lips. And once again, I might like hint at a little bit of chin happening there, but I'm not gonna go super detailed into defining a line, mostly because I find that the softer you keep the lines, the more feminine it feels. If it was a guy, I go like really hard and heavy in defining the lines of the chin, but for girls, I kind of keep it a little bit softer, just because it feels a bit more feminine. So we're gonna round off that chin there and sort of leave it there. I'm not gonna finish it off. Same thing for this part of the chin. I'm not gonna define the whole thing, just gonna kind of leave a bit, kind of help it feel a little bit softer. You get hair. Bam, and we got our up head, y'all. My up head don't look like that, but I'll keep trying. Yeah, dude, just try to think about it like a square. If it helps you, try to think about it like a square. When you draw a square, you see how the square has 3 different planes? You have the bottom, the front, and the side, right? So if you split that in the center like that, and then not halfway, but maybe like 3/4 of the way, a little more, a little less than 3/4, I would say, like in between 3/4 and halfway. Split that square again, just above that. You're gonna get your nose angle, the top of the nose. That right there, that's the key. That's the thing to figure out. Once you figure out that nose shape, a lot of things will start falling into place. Because the thing about the nose is the way the eyes and cheeks work around the nose changes depending on what angle the face is. So I always look at the eyes in like, you get this shape here, right? So this is on a basic head. Every time the eye is gonna sit inside of that shape. And then what usually happens you get the other eye, nose, so that's this right here is what you'll usually get in terms of defining your nose. Versus your eyes, right? Is the eyes are always going to be sitting inside of this hexagonal shape, connected by the bridge of the nose, the top of the nose there. So navigating how this shape changes as the face changes. So like when you're looking down, for instance, when you're looking down, you're going to see more of the top of the head. Which means you're also going to see the top of the nose. And as that side comes up, when you're seeing the eyes from the top, you're also going to be seeing the top of those cheeks. So where here, if you notice, the eyes are sort of sunken in towards like the bottom, when you're looking at it from the top, you got your hexagon, then you're going to see the top of the cheek there. So then your eye is going to be sitting in there. And then your nose. Goes down. So it's like thinking about those shapes, building those shapes, and thinking about how they interact as head turns is like probably the toughest part about figuring out how to draw characters. Squidward. Well, Squidward has like more of a boob nose, right? But this is more like just a square, more or less. Is this the planes of the face? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, when you're thinking about how the planes kind of come together. It's like if you can understand that, then you can take that and replicate it in any perspective, you know. Even when it comes to breaking down like an up head, you get your nose, you're gonna be seeing all kinds of the bottom of that. As that comes up, you got your cheekbone, hexagon shape. It falls into the bridge of the nose. Hexagon shape continues on the other side. The eyes are gonna sit sunken in that shape. Front of the face. Bottom of that chin. Other side of the chin. Lips. And this is also helpful when thinking about lighting your characters too. People are always like, study the planes of the face, but now I understand why it's so helpful, and now and how to draw them. Yeah, dude, it can be really helpful in terms of figuring out like how to place things, and also figuring out lighting too. Cause like let's say we have a basic face, and in this case we got light coming from that side there, right? So when you're figuring out the planes of the face, you have get that skull in there. And if you were to think about it like a box, we're literally just looking at the front plane that has a nose, and that nose has side planes, and so does the face, right? So all of this, including this, all of this is front, 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 front. All of that is front. You get front there, front here. Eyes sunking in. You're also gonna get front plane here, front plane there as well. Even that's front. So when it comes to this face, start with the bridge of the nose. That's gonna come just above that split line. Then I'm gonna have my hexagons kind of branching out from that bridge. Start to clean up a little bit. get a mouth. All right. And right now I'm kind of talking about the planes, the various planes of each body parts. All right, so there's like a so that's like a full sort of plane breakdown. Where you have like your forehead, cheeks, your chin, and sort of figuring a lot of this stuff out really helps in terms of lighting the face. Because say you wanted to do the lighting that this chick has here, so you're looking at one directional lighting, which means that all of the planes facing this side are gonna catch some light, meaning these planes here are facing away from the light, so that's gonna catch shadow. This is gonna catch shadow. That's gonna catch shadow. That's gonna catch shadow. This is gonna catch shadow. This cheekbone here. Catching shadow. That's in the light, so that's not gonna catch any shadow. This side of the nose is also in the light, so that's not gonna catch shadow. But this side of the nose, this front part of the nose, is gonna catch shadow. That side of the light, no shadow. Here, that side of the inside of the eye is gonna catch a bit of shadow. Shadows all up in there. All shadow there. Under the chin. So then you have some of that area there that's catching some light. That area is catching some light. That part of the side of the lip is catching light. Side of the face there. is catching light. So learning those planes on the face can really help you in terms of figuring out how to light your characters. Because now let's say I want a little bit more light on the face. Like I still want it to only come from the right direction, but I don't want it to be so shrouded in shadow. So now we can open up the forehead here. Which also means that since the forehead is catching some light, that cheek is going to catch some light. Since the eyes are sunken in, eyes are still going to catch a good bit of shadow. But that nose is gonna see some light now. That chin. Chin's gonna see a bit more light. Then you get something like this. I think this part of the under nose is going to catch a little bit more light. So now, with understanding the planes of the face, now we were able to open up more of the face to light and still keep a lot of the face in shadow. And with that understanding of the planes, how the planes work, how the face breaks down into planes, it makes it so much easier to figure out how to light the face as well. Explain what you mean by each part. So, you know how like when you're working with, say, like a square, say you have just like a basic square, right? When you turn a square, it then becomes a cube. And in that case, now I have a plane here, a plane here, and another plane there. And if I were able to see through that cube, then I have a bottom plane, a back plane, and a plane on the other side. So each face of this square is a different plane. The thing about faces is that they're a hell of a lot more intricate than squares, but your forehead is on the same plane as your nose. Even though your nose comes out, the front of your nose is facing the same direction as your forehead. So that's what I mean by planes. Your cheeks here, your cheeks, your nose, your forehead, the front of your chin, all of these are going to be on the same plane. The under part, your what's that? Septum? Is that right? Septum? No, that's not right. Is it? Yeah, septum. That part between your lip and your nose, that's going to be on the same plane. So like that, 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 and that. All of these are going to be on the same plane. But then the side of your head fulcrum. That's what it is.
Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
mon ami.
yeah. Rickzilla, what's happening? Thank you for the follow. Yeah, the fulcrum, above the lip but below the nose. That, the front face of your nose, forehead, front face of your chin, your cheeks, the front face of your cheeks. All of that is one plane of your face. And then like the side of your nose, that kind of side of the fulcrum there, a bit of the side of your chin, and the side of your head, that's another plane. The sternum, that's definitely not it. Your sternum's in your your sternum's like but then you have like the side of the head there, the side of the cheeks there, and the side of the nose there. That's gonna be another plane. That's gonna all of these are on a separate plane. So figuring out the planes of the face is like 100% key to figuring out, one, not only how to light the face, but also how to draw the face in different perspectives. The thing is that this right here feels really complicated, but the thing is once you figure out like how to do this, then what happens is you can take that knowledge So yeah, literally just took that same lighting and applied it to a similar face, and understanding the planes of how the face work, you can then like apply it to literally anything. Honestly, any type of face or character you're drawing, like once you really understand how lighting works, you can take those rules and apply them to almost anything. learning the planes of the face is important. Is basically where I was going with